It started like any other Saturday. Zara Bryant, 34, quiet, composed, the kind of woman who moved through the world like she didn't need to prove anything to anyone, was pushing a small cart through a corner grocery store in South Atlanta. Her niece, Maya, just 7, skipped beside her. "Can we get the strawberry cereal?" she asked, holding up the bright pink box. Zara smiled, nodded. "Only if you promise not to eat it all in one day." They laughed. She paid in cash, took the receipt, bagged her items. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. But as she reached the automatic doors, 2 white officers stepped in front of her. One hand rested casually on his belt. The other pointed at her bag. "Ma'am," Officer Deeks said. "We need to speak with you." Zara blinked, still holding Maya's hand. "About what?" "You didn't pay for that cereal." Zara frowned. "I did. You can check the register. I paid in cash." Deeks didn't budge. The second officer, Harlan, moved behind her, flanking. "We need to see your ID." Step to the side. Customers started pausing, turning. Zara stayed still. "My ID's in my purse. You're free to check the cameras." Harlan grinned slightly, like this was sport. "We don't have time for games. Step outside." And before anyone could say anything else, they grabbed her arms. Maya screamed. She didn't do anything. Zara didn't fight. She didn't yell. She looked down at her niece and said softly, "It's okay." Someone gasped. A phone camera clicked on. Then another. Zara was handcuffed at the door, bag of groceries at her feet, receipt still tucked inside. A young black man recording muttered under his breath, "This is some bull." The cashier rushed over. "She paid. I just rang her up." But the officers didn't listen. They walked her out anyway. Maya sobbed behind them, trying to follow. The stranger pulled her gently aside. "It's gonna be okay, baby." Zara didn't say another word. She didn't argue, didn't explain. She just looked up, meeting the lens of a nearby phone. Her face calm, expression unreadable. And the internet noticed. Within hours, the video hit 1 million views. Wrongfully arrested. She paid. We all saw it. Why is she so calm? Everyone wanted to know who she was. Some thought she was a lawyer. Others said she must be a teacher or judge. No one guessed the truth. Because Zara didn't speak. Not in that moment. Not when the cuffs dug into her wrists. Not when the squad car door slammed shut. Not even when Maya's cries echoed down the block. She simply watched. Silent. Controlled. Like someone who knew this wasn't the end. Just the first move. At the precinct, they acted like they were in on some kind of joke. Harlan tossed Zara's purse on the desk without care. "What's her name again?" he asked. Deeks shrugged. "Didn't catch it." She wouldn't say. Typical. Zara sat quietly on the bench, hands still cuffed, wrists red. Her bag sat untouched, the wallet half out. One officer opened it, pulled out her ID, squinted. Zara Bryant. Then, almost like an afterthought, he slipped it in his pocket. "Guess we lost it," he muttered. In the back, laughter. They didn't see her watching, didn't notice the way her eyes scanned the room. Calm, controlled, calculated. They booked her slowly, like they were dragging it out on purpose. Fingerprint ink smeared across her fingers. The young cop pressing them down harder than necessary. "You're awful quiet," he said, eyes narrowing. "Not even gonna ask why you're here." Zara just looked at him. Expression blank. He smirked. "Suit yourself." In another room, Harlan leaned back in his chair, legs kicked up, talking loud. "Tried to tell me she paid in cash. Please. Who carries cash anymore?" "Yeah, and that little girl screaming?" "Drama queen," Deeks added. "We did everything by the book." He pulled up the video on his phone. It was already making rounds online. Thousands of shares. "Look at this. I'm famous," he laughed. Harlan leaned over. "Damn, I look good in uniform." They fist bumped. Zara sat in holding, alone. No call, no lawyer. Her hands still stained. A janitor passed by, gave her a glance. "You okay?" he asked softly. She looked up, nodded once. That was it. Online, the fire was spreading. People were angry, really angry. Where is she now? Who's her lawyer? Why is she in holding at all? Civil rights groups reposted the video. A local journalist tweeted, "We're looking into the identity of the woman wrongfully arrested today in South Atlanta." Zara didn't know. Or maybe she did, but she didn't react. Not when the young officer came back in and said, "Sorry, still can't find your ID." Not when he leaned against the bars and added, "You don't look like a thief, but you people always surprise me." Still, nothing. She just sat there, hands in her lap, staring at the wall like it owed her an answer. Because this wasn't new. Not the handcuffs. Not the mockery. Not the so-called lost eye. What was new was what came next. And they had no idea. No idea what they'd stepped into. No idea who she really was. No idea that their little power trip was about to become a national reckoning. Because Zara Bryant was never just another woman in a holding cell. And by the time they figured it out, it would already be too late. The mugshot landed online before the ink on her prints had dried. Zara Bryant. Black hoodie. No makeup. Eyes steady. Chin lifted. Not a smirk. Not a scowl. Just a stillness that didn't fit the story the cops tried to tell. It wasn't a picture of guilt. It was a warning. By the time they uploaded it to the system, someone on the inside had already leaked it. It spread like wildfire. Comments piled up. "She doesn't look scared. This woman is somebody. I can feel it." They picked the wrong one. Activists began stitching clips of the arrest with her mugshot. Side-by-side images. Zara's face versus the officer's laughter. The contrast made people furious. The caption under one viral post read, "This is the face of quiet power. Don't blink." Meanwhile, in a modest office 2 miles away, Maya King stared at the photo on her screen. She didn't know Zara personally. Not yet. But something about that face, it wasn't just calm, it was trained. Maya had seen 1,000 mugshots in her career. Angry, afraid, broken. But this one was different. She opened a case file. Filed a civil suit before sunset. Wrongful arrest. Racial targeting. Civil rights violation. Then she made the call. "Get me in to see her. Tonight." By midnight, activist networks were in motion. Data researchers pulled up records on the officers. Turns out, this wasn't their first questionable arrest. Just their most public. Digital sleuths cross-referenced timelines. Zara had no prior record. No known employer. No digital footprint beyond basic utilities and voter registration. A ghost in the system. And that's when the curiosity turned into a movement. Tweets shifted. "Who is she? Why can't I find anything on her? Her silence is louder than their sirens." Maya posted one line. "We're just getting started." And the internet listened. Petitions launched. Protest signs printed. But at the heart of it all was that single photo. Zara, framed by a dirty wall, hair pulled back, eyes locked on the camera like it owed her something. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't pleading. She was waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the truth to catch up. And outside, without even saying a word, she was already becoming more than a woman in a mugshot. She was becoming a storm. The room was cold. White walls. Metal chair. Nothing inviting. Maya stepped in. File in hand. Face unreadable. Zara looked up slowly. She hadn't spoken much since the arrest. This time, she nodded. "Maya King." Maya sat down. "You know me." "I've read your work." Maya blinked. She hadn't expected that. "I filed your suit. Public pressure's rising. People want answers." Zara didn't respond right away. She folded her hands, wrists still raw. "I'm not what they think I am," she said quietly. Maya leaned forward. "Then help me understand what you are." Zara hesitated. Looked around the room. Then back at Maya. "This goes deeper than 2 officers and a false arrest." Maya studied her. "How deep?" Zara lowered her voice. "They didn't know who I was. But someone did. Someone flagged me." "Flagged you for what?" Zara looked down. "They need you to go to my apartment. Top drawer bedroom closet. There's a sealed envelope. Black tape. Bring it. Don't open it there." Maya nodded slowly. "Okay. You'll understand once you see it. But be careful." She said it with a weight that froze Maya mid-breath. "You're not a civilian, are you?" Zara didn't answer. Just looked away. Back in her car, Maya drove in silence. Every red light felt like a question she couldn't yet answer. She let herself into Zara's apartment. Sparse. Clean. Organized with military precision. She found the envelope exactly where Zara said. Heavy. Labeled only with a date. She brought it home. Locked the door behind her. Sat at the kitchen table. And opened it. The first page was a letter. Signed with a name Maya didn't recognize. But the agency seal at the top said it all. Central Intelligence Agency. She turned the page. Photos, reports, credentials, mission outlines, cover identities. Zara Bryant was an alias. Her real name, redacted in several places, but the call sign was consistent. Sariah West. Maya's hand shook. Her client was a former intelligence operative, possibly still active, possibly marked, and now, exposed. She leaned back, heart pounding. Suddenly, it all made sense. The silence, the stillness, the mugshot. This wasn't just about justice. It was about something bigger, something hidden. And Maya had just stepped straight into the middle of it. The more Maya read, the colder her hands felt. The credentials were real. Federal. Time-stamped. The kind of clearance you don't fake. Sariah West. That was the name. Not Zara Bryant. That was just a shell. Sariah had been CIA. Counterintelligence. Special assignments. Foreign assets. Rogue surveillance cells. Photos of operations across multiple continents. No weapons in hand. Just sharp eyes. Forged documents and coded transmissions. Then, nothing. Silence for 6 years. A deep retirement, or a deeper cover. Maya paced her apartment. The files spread out across the kitchen table like puzzle pieces with half the image blacked out. She pulled up her laptop, ran quiet background searches. Every hit came back with a soft error code. Scrubbed. Archived. White. They'd buried her. On purpose. Maya picked up the final page, a one-liner written in pen at the bottom of a debrief report. If this resurfaces, assume exposure was not accidental. Exposure was not accidental. Maya froze. That arrest, it hadn't been random. Someone wanted Sariah seen. The body cam footage. The mugshot. The viral firestorm. None of it just bad luck. Someone had pulled her out of the shadows. She picked up her phone, called her assistant. I need everything you can find on any recent data leaks involving former intelligence personnel, especially women of color. Start from 6 months ago and work forward. Keep it quiet. Then she texted Zara. Need to see you, tomorrow. Privately. The reply came back instantly. Bring the envelope. And come alone. The next morning, Maya entered the visitor's room at the detention center. Zara looked up from her seat, calm as ever. Not a trace of panic in her posture. Maya slid the envelope forward. You were right. They know who you are. Or they want the world to know. Zara nodded slowly. That's what I fear. Maya leaned in. Why now? Who would do this? Zara stared past her for a long second before answering. I burned a program years ago. Rogue asset recruitment. Domestic. Unauthorized. I shut it down. And someone held a grudge? Maya asked. Zara met her eyes. No. Someone kept it alive. That landed hard. Maya lowered her voice. You think they're inside law enforcement? I think they've always been there. For the first time, Maya saw something flicker in Zara's expression. Not fear. Not anger. Something worse. Certainty. You think they used those 2 officers to smoke you out? Zara nodded. Or test the waters. Either way, I've been marked. Maya felt the weight of it settle in her chest. Then we don't just fight for justice. No, Zara said quietly. We fight to survive. She stood. And Maya, if I disappear again, don't look for me. Maya shook her head. I'm not letting them bury you a second time. Zara gave a faint smile. Then keep the cameras rolling. Because the second the world forgets my name, they win. And this time, they won't get that chance. At the precinct, the mood was light. Beeks leaned against the break room counter, sipping bad coffee and grinning like a local celebrity. 100,000 views in 2 days, he bragged. Someone said I look like Captain America if he hated rules. Harlan laughed. I don't care what they say. That chick was shady. Gave me attitude the minute I said hello. They clinked paper cups. Another officer chuckled from the corner. You two need a podcast. The jokes came easy. No accountability. Just backslaps and inside comments about doing what had to be done. But underneath, something was shifting. Harlan noticed it first. The same black SUV parked outside 3 days in a row. No plates. No city markings, windows too dark. At first he brushed it off. Probably undercover. But then it showed up near his apartment. Same spot. Same angle. Just sitting there. He mentioned it to Deeks. You think we're being watched? Deeks scoffed. By who? Twitter. That night. Deeks got home, opened his laptop to stream a game and froze. His desktop was blank. Every file gone. Emails, history, documents, wiped. He rebooted. Still nothing. Then his phone buzzed. One text. No number. You're on record. He stared at it for a long time, cold sweat forming. He told himself it was a prank. Probably someone mad online. No big deal. But he unplugged the laptop anyway, pulled the blinds, locked the door twice. At work the next morning, things felt different. The chief didn't crack a smile. Internal Affairs asked for their original arrest report again. A reporter showed up outside asking for comment, and then Harlan's badge login stopped working. He waited 10 minutes at the computer terminal, then muttered, "Systems down." The tech guy walked past. Didn't even glance his way. "Nope, just yours." Deeks pulled him aside. "We're not paranoid, right?" "Something's happening?" Harlan's jaw was tight. "We're not paranoid, we're exposed." Across town, Zara sat in her cell reading quietly. Like time didn't apply to her. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need rage. She had something better. Eyes. Watching. Following. Recording. One by one, the men who laughed at her were starting to feel it. Not guilt. Not fear of public outrage. But the heavy chill of being watched. The kind of pressure they'd never felt before. And it was only just beginning. Zara stepped out of the detention center just after sunrise. No press. No statement. No entourage. Just her, Maya, and the weight of a world that still hadn't figured out who they were dealing with. Maya offered to drive. Zara declined. "I've got someone I need to call." Back at her apartment, the first thing Zara did was switch out her SIM card. The second, she used a burner laptop to send a single encrypted message. "Langston, it's me." 2 hours later, her phone rang once. Then a voice. "Damn, West. You're still alive." "Didn't expect to be seen again like this," Zara said. "Neither did I." Langston's voice was rough. Tired. "Where are you?" "Doesn't matter." He didn't ask again. Just said, "You stirred something." Zara nodded to herself. "Something stirred me first." Langston used to work inside the NSA. Analyst. Codebreaker. Quiet genius. Until he blew the whistle on a surveillance program targeting black activists. Now he lived in shadows. Trustworthy. Careful. Dangerous in his own way. Zara got straight to it. "You've seen the video." "Everyone has. But you being public again." He paused. "Not an accident." "I know. I ran some back-channel flags. You were marked red 2 days before the arrest." Zara went still. "Which node?" "Old one. Doesn't officially exist anymore. But it's live. Someone's using it." She swallowed hard. "Same group. Maybe a splinter. But they're plugged in. Domestic agencies. Possibly even local law enforcement." Zara closed her eyes. "They're not just watching. No. They're moving." She didn't ask what that meant. She already knew. "But he tried to frame me to pull me out," she said. Langston's voice dropped. "And now that you're out, they'll either finish what they started, or bury it before more light gets in." Zara stood up, walking slowly to the window. The city looked peaceful. Unaware. "I need you to send me the last intel logs tied to Operation Grayscale. Anything cross-flagged with Atlanta." Langston hesitated. "That'll get me flagged." "You're already flagged for talking to me." He let out a breath. "All right. I'll send what I can." She ended the call. No speeches. No press conferences. No rage. Just steps. Careful ones. Zara didn't need to yell. She was building a trail. Quiet. Strategic. Measured. Because power doesn't always show its teeth. Sometimes it watches from the corner. Sometimes it waits for the other side to think they've won. And then it strikes without a sound. The news broke on a rainy Tuesday morning. The city prosecutor, calm behind a podium, announced they were proceeding with charges against Zara Bryant. Shoplifting. Resisting arrest. Obstruction. Cameras clicked. Reporters gasped. One asked, "Even after the footage?" The prosecutor replied coldly, "We're confident in our evidence." The air went still. Social media did not. The internet exploded. "You're charging her?" She literally paid on camera. "This is not justice. This is war." Community groups rallied fast. Within hours, there were protest plans in motion. Maya stood beside Zara in a quiet office, watching the live stream in disbelief. "They're serious," Maya muttered. They're actually going forward with this. Zara nodded once, unfazed. They want to force me into silence, or into rage. Maya's phone buzzed. A message from a grocery store employee. I have the full camera footage. She drove across town. No cameras. No reporters. Just a cashier named Andre. Hands shaking as he handed over the USB. They made me delete it from the store system, he whispered. But I saved a backup. Just in case. Maya watched the footage that night. Zara, clear as day, putting every item on the belt. Paying. Taking the receipt. Deke standing in the corner watching her walk out. Following. Then Harlan joining. Laughing as they moved. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a setup. Maya filed the footage into her motion to dismiss. She added 2 words at the top. Full exposure. The internet caught wind of the footage. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse. Signs raised high. The receipt exists. Protect black women. She paid. They lied. Hashtags surged. Justice for Zara. Release the footage. She paid. Zara remained quiet through it all. She didn't speak at the rallies. Didn't post a single message online. She simply watched. Every false charge they pressed sharpened the public's clarity. Every headline they pushed grew more ridiculous by the hour. In one day, her case went from controversy to cause. And she just waited. Not because she was powerless, but because she knew they'd just handed her the rope. And she planned to wrap it, carefully, around every lie they'd ever told. The precinct's walls weren't cracking, they were splintering. Not on the surface, not where the public could see, but inside, among the officers, the shift had begun. And Officer Elena Torres felt it in her bones. She'd been silent too long. She saw the looks Harlan and Deeks gave black drivers. The smirks. The jokes in the locker room. She'd heard them laugh about making someone's day harder just because they could. But after Zara's arrest and the storm that followed, Torres started digging. And what she found made her sick. Internal chat logs. Messages between Harlan and Deeks. Time-stamped. Want to mess with that one at checkout? She's got that stuck-up vibe. Let's do it. I'm bored anyway. Bet I can get her in cuffs and under. Torres sat at her desk, fists clenched. Her badge felt heavier than usual. She knew what would happen if she leaked it. Transfers. Retaliation. Maybe worse. But then she thought of Zara's niece, standing there while her aunt got dragged away in cuffs. She clicked export, encrypted the file, sent it to an anonymous tip line run by a local journalist. Then she deleted everything from her end. The story broke within leaked logs reveal officers targeted woman for fun. Screenshots attached. Unfiltered. Ugly. Real. The department scrambled. Press conference canceled. Internal Affairs launched an emergency probe. The mayor issued a statement calling the messages deeply troubling. Harlan and Deeks? Suspended. But not fired. Still, it was a crack. A big one. And inside the station, everything changed. No more jokes in the hallway. No more easy smirks. The air was colder. Sharper. People watched what they said. Zara hadn't commented publicly. She hadn't posted. But her silence now had weight. It said everything. It made officers uncomfortable. Made city officials squirm. Because if a woman could be wrongfully arrested, mocked, exposed, and still stay calm, still stay measured, what else was she capable of? Torres walked past Harlan's empty desk one afternoon. She didn't smile. Didn't gloat. She just kept walking. Because some battles are won by yelling. Others by leaking the truth when no one expects you to. And deep down, Torres knew. Zara's silence wasn't weakness. It was a warning. And for the first time, the system was listening. Langston's voice came through the secure line, low and tense. You were right. You were flat. Zara didn't move. By who? That's the problem. The node that flagged you, it's not supposed to exist anymore. Decommissioned years ago. Operation Grayscale. Remember? She closed her eyes. I shut it down. Well, someone booted it back up. Just enough to run a sweep. You popped red on a routine scan 2 weeks ago. Less than 48 hours later, you're in handcuffs over cereal. Zara breathed slowly. So this was a trigger, not an accident. Exactly. Not about the crime, about the signal. Then someone sending a message. She murmured. Langston sighed. Yeah, and it's not a subtle one. He paused. The system, the node, is not plugged into standard agency clearance anymore. It's running dark. Someone peeled it off the books, and they used your name as bait. Zara's voice hardened. To see if I'd surface. To see if you'd still fight. She stared out the window, mind racing. How many people even knew I was still stateside? Langston didn't answer. She already knew why. Too few. Which means the leak came from the inside. Langston hesitated. Or someone who used to be inside. You made enemies, West. The kind that don't forget. Zara looked down at her hands. They should have left me in peace. They didn't want peace. They wanted noise. And now they've got it. There was silence on the line. Then Langston said, I can help you stay off grid again. You don't owe the public this fight. Zara shook her head. I do. Why? Because it was never just about me. Another pause. Then Langston said, watch your back. Whoever lit this up, they're not done. She ended the call, then stood in the quiet of her apartment. The note had been dead. She buried it herself. That meant someone had been waiting for her for years. This wasn't about justice. This was a warning wrapped in handcuffs. But they'd miscalculated, because if they thought her silence meant surrender, they didn't understand who they were provoking. Zara West was no longer hiding, and the shadows that had once protected her were now going to burn. It started with a call, not through official channels. No secure emails. Just a blocked number on Maya's personal cell, late at night. She let it ring twice, then picked up. This is Maya King. A pause, then a calm, male voice. We're aware you've obtained documents connected to Sariah West. Maya didn't answer. The voice continued, we're asking formally that you destroy those documents and refrain from referencing any prior intelligence affiliations in future legal filings. Maya leaned back in her chair. Is that a threat? It's a request. For the sake of national security. She reached for her second phone. Hit record. Who exactly am I speaking with? Another pause. Then that's not important. It is to me, especially since I filed a civil suit for a woman your agency seems to have conveniently erased. The voice shifted. A shade colder. She was never meant to resurface. And you're not helping her by turning this into a circus. Maya's tone didn't waver. You erased her, but you didn't protect her. She got thrown to the ground over cereal, and now you want her to disappear again. She made her choice to disappear. Maya's eyes narrowed. And now she's making a different one. The line clicked. Just like that, it was over. But she had the recording. She played it back twice, then saved it to 3 separate encrypted drives. Sent one copy to a journalist she trusted, just in case. The next morning she met with Zara. They called me, Maya said, sliding her phone across the table. Zara listened. Her face didn't change. I knew they'd try. Maya leaned in. They don't want you in that courtroom. I know. They think this ends with a redacted file and a sealed record. Zara looked up. Her voice was steady. They sealed me once. I let them. Because I believed in the work. In the mission. She paused. But they used me up and threw me out. And now they want me gone again? She shook her head. No. I'm staying. Maya nodded. Then we take this public. Zara's eyes burned with quiet fire. Let them try to silence me in front of the world. Because the system that built her tried to break her. And now, she was ready to dismantle it. Piece by piece, using only the law and the truth. Maya filed the affidavit at night. It was clean. Precise. 17 pages of documented truth. Confirmation of service history. Assignment dates. Agency endorsements. Clearance levels. The cover identities she'd worn. The risk she carried. The missions she'd survived. Zara's name, Sariah West, was officially unsealed. By noon, the story was everywhere. Black woman arrested over serial identified as former CIA agent. System failed one of its own. Who really is Zara Bryant? Cable news ran back-to-back coverage. Footage of her arrest replayed on a loop, now overlaid with phrases like counterintelligence and national security asset. On Twitter, the energy shifted. Outrage turned into awe. This woman took down foreign cells and got arrested over serial. She served her country, and they dragged her like she was nothing. Zara Bryant is Sariah West. Say her name. All of them. At the courthouse, the press swarmed. Maya stood at the steps, flanked by activists and attorneys. She didn't need a microphone. Her voice cut through the noise. My client served this country in silence. She operated in places where most people wouldn't dare step. And yet her own city treated her like a criminal. She held up the affidavit. This is not just evidence. It's an indictment. Not of her, but of the system that discarded her. Inside, the mood was different. The judge, visibly rattled, called an unscheduled hearing. The prosecutor looked pale, suddenly cautious. And across the courtroom, Zara sat still. No suit, no makeup, just presence. A quiet kind of power that made everyone else feel like background. The courtroom buzzed. Lawyers whispered. Aides typed furiously. A hush followed her every move. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a reckoning. In every moment she stood there, calm, deliberate, unapologetic. She turned their courtroom into a war of truths. The bailiff stared. Jurors leaned forward. Even the stenographer paused longer between words. She wasn't speaking yet. But she didn't have to. Because now, every person in that room knew. She was never the criminal. She was the consequence. And her silence wasn't compliance. It was strategy. Maya leaned over, whispering, "The courtroom's yours now." Zara didn't blink. "Let's begin." And with that, the trial stopped being about charges. It became a battle for narrative. And Sariah West, the name they tried to bury, was now the most powerful voice in the room. The courtroom was packed, not just with lawyers and press, but with tension. The prosecutor stood stiffly at the podium, flipping through documents with too much purpose. Sweat dotted his collar. "We have reason to believe," he began, "that the defendant's military and intelligence credentials may have been falsified for the purpose of manipulating public opinion." There was a pause. The room stilled. Zara didn't even blink. Maya stood before the judge like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Your Honor, we subpoenaed testimony from the CIA this morning. That testimony has arrived." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You're saying the agency sent a representative?" "No," Maya replied. "They sent acknowledgement." She handed over a sealed envelope. The clerk brought it to the bench. The judge opened it carefully. Read, then again, slower. He looked up. "This confirms employment, clearance level, and code designation for the individual formerly known as Sariah West." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor shifted. That could be fabricated." The judge cut him off. "Sir, the seal is direct. Federal level. This is not fabrication." Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered, signs in hand, phones in the air. The live stream was trending on every major platform. Inside, the officers sat stone-faced. Deeks bounced his knee. Harlan stared forward, jaw clenched. Maya turned toward the jury. They knew who she was, or they didn't care. Either way, they lied. And now, they're unraveling. The judge's discomfort grew visible. He leaned forward, hands folded, almost pleading. "Do you intend to press federal charges?" Maya answered evenly. "Not today. But that door is now open." Outside, the chants grew louder. "Say her name, Sariah West." Inside, the officers began to feel it. The slow rot of public opinion turning against them. Not just social media noise, but actual consequence. The prosecutor sat down hard. He didn't have a case anymore. Only excuses. Zara remained still. Maya whispered. They blinked first. Zara didn't smile, but something shifted in her eyes. A tiny light. Not victory. Just confirmation. This wasn't about proving who she was. It was about proving who they were. And the mask was falling. The first domino dropped online. A Reddit thread titled "Who is Officer Deeks?" surfaced late one night. At first it looked like gossip. Then the screenshots hit. Deeks' old high school forums. Racist posts under an alias that matched his badge nickname. Instagram likes on alt-right pages. A comment under a video of a protest. Let him. Then someone posted his home address. The doxing was fast. His phone was disconnected within hours. His family issued a statement. "We ask for privacy." But the internet didn't stop. Journalists got involved. Within 2 days, Harlan's misconduct files resurfaced. Buried reports from 5 years back. Excessive force complaints. Internal warnings ignored. Body cam footage that had been quietly suppressed. One file stood out. A black teen thrown against a patrol car. Broken wrist. No charges filed. The city paid out $10,000 in a settlement that never made the papers. Now it was front page. City council members called emergency meetings. One stood outside the courthouse, cameras rolling. "This isn't one bad incident," she said. "This is a pattern, and we are complicit unless we act." The mayor promised full cooperation with internal affairs. But the damage was done. Harlan tried to delete his accounts. Too late. Deeks lawyered up. His legal team released a shaky statement. Our client maintains his actions were lawful and necessary. But even inside the force, the tone changed. No more jokes in the locker room. Whispers instead. Distant. One officer was heard muttering, "They're burning and we're all standing in the smoke." A local paper published a feature. Routine policing or targeted abuse. The Zara Bryant case opens wounds in Atlanta. They included photos. Not just of Zara, but of other faces. Other cases. Forgotten complaints. The narrative shifted. This wasn't just about what happened. It was about how often it happens. Zara didn't comment. She didn't tweet. She didn't stand on a podium. But her silence made the noise louder. Made every article sting. Made every voice of dissent feel heavier. She didn't say a word. But for the first time, people were listening. Zara walked to the stand like she'd done it before. Not in court, but in rooms that mattered. High-stakes briefings. Closed-door interrogations. Negotiations that never made the news. She took the oath. Sat down. Folded her hands in her lap. Maya asked the first question. State your name. A pause. Then with quiet precision. Sariah West. Former operative. U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. Code designation Raven. The courtroom went silent. Maya let it sit. Can you describe the nature of your work? I conducted counterintelligence operations abroad and domestic. My role was to identify and dismantle covert networks. Some hostile. Some internal. Her voice didn't shake. Not once. Maya moved through the timeline. The missions. The silence. The jury leaned in. Every word was clean. Measured. Zara didn't cry. She didn't rage. She laid out facts like puzzle pieces, each one fitting into a picture of how easily a system can twist, even on one of its own. She spoke of her retirement, the fake name, the quiet life. I didn't speak about my past because I was trained not to, because I thought if I served quietly, I'd be left in peace. She glanced at the jury. That was my mistake. Then she recounted the arrest. Not just what happened, but what it meant. To be trained by your country, trusted with its secrets, only to be dragged out of a store in front of your niece like you're nothing. It does something to you. The live stream was rolling. Over 1 million viewers. She continued. I didn't scream. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I knew I couldn't afford to be. Because women like me don't get to be loud without being labeled dangerous. She paused. Then added, even when we're the ones in danger. In the gallery, people wiped tears. Others sat frozen. Zara turned back to the judge. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for truth. She looked at the officers. I didn't choose to be made an example. But I will choose what kind of example I become. Maya stepped back. No further questions. And for a moment the courtroom didn't move. Because no one wanted to break what had just been built. A woman had stood up, not to reclaim power, but to reveal it. And in doing so she gave it to everyone watching. A testimony not of revenge, but of reckoning. By morning, the courthouse was surrounded. Protesters filled the block, not in chaos but in unity. Signs raised high. Chants steady. We see you, Sariah. Say her name, all of it. Some wore t-shirts printed with her mugshot beside her testimony quote. Even when we're the ones in danger. Social media turned seismic. Clips of Zara's testimony were edited with music, layered with historical footage. Rosa Parks, Angela Davis, Sandra Bland. One TikTok of a teenage girl watching the trial in tears went viral. I've never seen someone like me speak like that. I want to be like her. Civil rights attorneys started organizing formal petitions. They weren't asking for attention anymore. They were demanding legislation. Maya could hardly keep up. Her inbox flooded with requests for interviews, speaking engagements, legal partnerships. But Zara? She stayed quiet. Not withdrawn, just focused. She wasn't trying to ride the wave. She was shaping it. Behind closed doors, she met with community organizers. She drafted policy proposals, suggested new oversight board structures. She wasn't just the face of the movement, she was steering its engine. Every word she didn't say in public only added weight to her presence. Young black girls posted videos mimicking her calm, measured cadence. They quoted her with pride. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for truth. Journalists stopped calling her a victim. They started calling her a strategist. A force, a turning point. And still Zara didn't gloat, didn't bask. She watched. And waited. Because while the people had made their decision, the courtroom hadn't yet. This wasn't over. But something had already shifted. The system could no longer pretend it hadn't been seen. And whatever came next, it would be judged not just by a jury, but by the people, watching now with eyes wide open. The room was small, windowless, quiet. 3 men in suits sat across from Maya and Zara, offering soft smiles and veiled warnings. "This has gotten bigger than any of us anticipated," one said. Zara didn't reply. She watched. The man continued. "What we're proposing is a settlement. Discreet. You get full dismissal, financial compensation, and the city avoids prolonged scrutiny." Maya raised an eyebrow. "And in return? A statement. Something measured. Something that helps the public. Calm down." Zara folded her arms. "You mean lie. We mean move on." Another man leaned in. "You've made your point. This doesn't have to go nuclear." Maya's fingers tapped the table. She was already recording. Quietly. Clearly. They kept talking. Phrases like mutual resolution, narrative control, community optics. By the time the meeting ended, the fire had been lit. That night, Maya leaked the audio anonymously. It hit the internet like gasoline on open flame. City tried to silence CIA agent. Leaked audio confirms backroom deal. The headlines ran for days. People didn't just protest now. They demanded resignations. The mayor went dark. The city council scrambled. Because this wasn't about damage control anymore. It was about exposure. And Zara made one thing clear. She wasn't accepting silence in exchange for safety. Not this time. The jury filed in slowly. Zara sat with her hands folded, expression steady. Maya beside her still in a... The courtroom was packed. No cameras inside, but every seat filled. Phones clenched tight. Breath held. The foreman stood. "On the count of shoplifting, we find the defendant, Zara Bryant, not guilty." The air shifted. But no cheers yet. Not yet. "On the count of resisting arrest, not guilty." Maya exhaled. Zara didn't move. Then, the pause. "On the matter of civil rights violations by officers Harlan and Deeks." The silence deepened. "We find both defendants guilty." A sharp inhale rippled through the room. No one spoke. The judge's gavel hit once. Order. Still, no one moved. Then slowly, as if collectively exhaling the weight of weeks, the energy changed. Not celebration. Not noise. Just release. Maya closed her eyes, lips parting slightly, like she could finally breathe. Zara looked straight ahead. No tears. No triumph. Just peace. Harlan's jaw clenched. Deeks looked dazed. Bailiffs approached. Handcuffs clicked. This time, they didn't laugh. They didn't smirk. They didn't walk out on their own terms. Outside, the crowd waited. Phones up. Chants held back. When Maya and Zara stepped through the courthouse doors, the silence broke into thunder. Applause. Tears. Raised fists. Journalists shouting questions. Zara didn't speak. She simply raised her hand once, not in victory, but acknowledgement. Because this wasn't just a verdict. It was a mirror. And every person watching saw not just what had been done to her, but what had been done, for too long, to so many others. Justice hadn't arrived perfectly, but it had arrived. And for the first time, it stayed. The verdict cracked something open. Not just in the courtroom but across the country. Within days, federal charges were filed against Harlan and Deeks. Civil rights violations. Perjury. Obstruction. They weren't shielded by their uniforms anymore. The Atlanta precinct went under immediate audit. Investigators poured through years of complaints, footage, settlements, things that had been buried or ignored. The numbers didn't lie. Patterns emerged. Not just with 2 officers. With dozens. The police chief resigned before the report even dropped. The city announced a new independent commission on law enforcement bias. No more internal reviews. No more quiet deals behind closed doors. Zara didn't hold a press conference. She went to Washington. No cameras. No red carpet. Just closed-door meetings with lawmakers, policy architects, civil rights attorneys. She spoke clearly, calmly. She didn't demand vengeance. She outlined reform. "What I want," she said, "is not revenge. It's prevention." They listened. Because she wasn't asking. She was instructing. Her presence alone made silence uncomfortable. One senator later admitted, "She made me realize how loud injustice sounds when spoken softly." Changes began rolling out. Local departments revised arrest protocols. Training shifted. Oversight boards were created with teeth, not just titles. Other cities felt the pressure. Either adapt or be exposed. Journalists started asking real questions. Communities started holding real votes. And the people who had looked the other way started looking inward. Zara watched it all from a distance. Never loud. Never showing. Just present. Unshakable. Because reckoning didn't mean rage. It meant clarity. And now, the country had no choice but to see what it had tried to keep hidden. Zara refused every interview. No primetime special. No book deal. No headline moment. Instead, she wrote pages of legislation drafts, policy blueprints, training programs for oversight boards. She funded whistleblowers quietly, set up legal defense grants, designed digital security protocols for activists. No one saw her at ribbon cuttings, but her fingerprints were everywhere. In Harlem, she walked the streets like any other neighbor. Some people knew who she was. Most didn't, but when she passed by, folks stopped, not out of fame, out of respect. She once sat on a park bench with Maya and watched her niece, now 11, practicing a speech for school. "I'm doing it on you," Maya's niece said proudly. "Except I'm calling it when silence fights back." Zara smiled gently. "Make sure it ends with action, not applause." She still didn't wear uniforms. Didn't wear titles. But people came to her like they would a general after the war. School boards asked her to help rewrite their curriculum. Local leaders asked her to vet accountability boards before public rollout. When things got murky, people called her, not for press, for guidance. Because the woman who was once framed now framed reform. And everywhere her name was whispered, something changed. 1 year later, the law passed, the West Act. Federal enforcement of civil rights and police arrests. Mandated data audits. National misconduct registry. Independent oversight panels in every department receiving federal funds. It wasn't perfect, but it was permanent. Zara didn't attend the signing. She sent Maya instead. When asked why, she simply said, "The work is the point, not the spotlight." In classrooms, her case was studied, not as tragedy, but as turning point. Students debated ethics, law, surveillance, race. Professors spoke of dignity under pressure, of strategic silence, of what it meant to win without screaming. Documentaries followed, but none captured what truly mattered. Because Zara West was never just a story. She was a shift, a reckoning dressed in stillness, a reminder that real power rarely needs to raise its voice. Her niece stood at the front of her 8th grade class and finished her speech. She didn't march, she didn't shout, she just stood. And because she stood, so many others could move. The classroom went quiet, not because there was nothing left to say, but because everyone understood. Power didn't have to announce itself. Sometimes it just had to endure. And in that silence, we remember her name, not as the woman they arrested, but as the one they could never erase.